Happy Monday, everybody, wherever you are. We hope you have started this week with some great energy. Kia ora, good evening, bonsoir. Mwaramutse, mwiriwe, makadini, akwaba, dumalang.
Hello.
Yeah, this is like a new greeting that I have been taught by my friend
Dumelang, yeah.
Yeah, from Botswana.
How's it going?
Yes, how is it going? Yeah.
Happy to be here. Happy Monday to everybody.
That's right. We have a special guest here in the studio, and we wanted to invite her to tell us who she is, right? Personally and professionally, her background, and getting to the point of why we have her in the studio.
Ooh, okay. Who am I? That's a really deep question to ask somebody. Like the first question, who are you? No,
exactly.
So my name is Varsha.
Right.
And I am from the beautiful, beautiful country of Botswana, which is in the southern of Africa.
Not South Africa.
The southern part of Africa.
That is actually quite important to...
It's right above South Africa, but, let's focus on Botswana right now.
I feel you.
But, yes, we are here in Auckland, New Zealand. So someone from Burundi, someone from Botswana, Auckland, New Zealand, the continents reuniting. That's what's happening. And so, yeah, I don't know. Why am I here, Nadine?
Well, I want to know more actually about what you are into, like currently, what are you doing before we can talk about why you are here?
So I am a student at the University of Auckland and I study a conjoint in law and global studies.
Mm-hmm.
And my interests have changed a lot from what it started to what it began, but coming to New Zealand specifically. And I realized like the influence of China, and not just the influence of China, but the extent of it. That's really what hit me coming to New Zealand. And it's like really cool to see, really beautiful to see, but it's something that you can slowly start to see in Africa right now, which is something that I find very, very interesting. And so, we try to embody that in my degree with what I study. And I started to learn Chinese. Because I realized that China is the future. Whether we like it or not, it's something that has to be accepted. And it's best to prepare oneself for what's about to come, ideally. And more than that, like I see how China's influencing Africa. And Botswana being such a young country, it's still growing, has so much more potential to reach, has already reached an amazing amount of potential, but like has so much more to reach. And China now slowly like coming in, I'm like a bit protective.
Of course.
I'm a bit protective.
Like anyone of us would do.
I'm just a little bit protective, and I want to make sure that it's done the right way.
Yes.
That it's done the right way, and we're giving it enough like space for us to grow, even if they come in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That would be just like adding on to what you're saying, and that would be like something that I experienced. I love talking about Burundi because that's my lived experience. And I remember going to Burundi sometimes, maybe 2012 or something, and then I saw some Chinese or Asian people in Burundi. And for me, because being in Aotearoa for so long, I had, been used to seeing, our neighbors, they are close to us and that kind of thing. But I was a little bit actually surprised that when I'm in New Zealand, people don't even know where Burundi is, and some people don't even know Africa. But then I'm seeing Asian people in Burundi, and I'm like, this is quite interesting. And I felt that feeling of protection too. I'm like, but what are you doing here? Like, is this because of love? You know?
What are your intentions?
We also, like, you've got a podcast, don't you? You also have a podcast.
thing you brought that up because my co-host would absolutely maul me if I went back and did not mention this little baby of ours.
Yeah.
So I co-host a podcast called Sumting Nice, Sumting Nice. Look us up.
We will put your link into the show notes. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate. But I co-host the podcast, and providing different narratives is completely a part of it, and it's something I enjoy doing. And seeking that knowledge to sort of provide those narratives is something that I realized I quite enjoy, and I'm really passionate about. So I was like, why not share it? Why not bring more people on to share it with and share it from? So I was like, that's what the podcast is all about. And I met Nadine, who was like, I'm a podcaster too. And we were like, this is an episode waiting to happen.
It's actually quite interesting because I met her at her birthday, from our common friend. We didn't know each other, and we are sitting close to each other. And, as we get to know the new people, you just met, and we are like, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and I am so interested in knowing more about China. And she goes, oh my God, I've been researching China for the last 3 years. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Now that's a conversation to be had. And here we are.
And thank you for having me.
Pleasure is ours. Yeah. So you, after 3 years of research into China and, its relations to the rest of the world, obviously, I wanted to just go back and understand why was China fascinating to you amongst any other? There's Japan too.
There's Japan too. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And there's my origin India too. That's growing. Why wasn't I fascinated there? Yeah. Fair enough. Fair questions. I agree. And this is honestly because. So I was really obsessed, and I still am. I love Latin America, South America, the culture, the people. It's a place where I gave a part of me for a huge part of myself. Yeah. So I really enjoyed the culture, and I was very keen on trying to build Latin American relations or further my Spanish. And then I met someone who, bless her soul, but she was like, Varsha, look around you, China. And I was like, yeah, you're right, China. And it just made sense. And so I decided to start learning Chinese. And it was the decision, I would say one of the best decisions I made in my life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, interestingly, I love the language. The culture seems really fascinating to me. And even just character-wise, it's very interesting to see how their brains worked. It's so impressive.
It is very impressive.
It is so impressive, and it's so cool. The character for a woman is actually a woman sitting cross-legged. You can see it in the character. The character for a sun is a sun. It's a circle that's been defined and squared around a little bit now. But it's interesting and it's fascinating to me, and their presence in Africa is something that I started to notice. And I realized that going back to Botswana whenever I was visiting, when I was going there to stay with family and just be back home, I started to notice all of our construction projects being given to international companies. And I was like, okay, international companies that are from where? And then you would realize that these were international companies from China. And I was like, that is so interesting because we have so many local Botswana that we can tender to. And I thought that was really fascinating, and I and learning the culture. And I was like, that's really interesting because I'm very curious to see, a little bit of how this is going to go down with China being so invested in Africa. And so that's where my passions originated from, of learning and deciding to study this. Because choosing to study something is hard. I don't think people understand that, but it's hard.
It is. I think we all got
choosing one thing to study. Surely you'll understand. If you had to choose one out of so many things, how do you choose?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even have options to actually what you would love to pursue. Because
for sure.
There might not be careers or jobs, Well, coming back to that point when you said you were curious, because I believe that at the moment, in this day and age, everybody has heard of China. Whether from school, whether from people, whether from your friends. It is a very understandable quest to have curiosity, to know and understand, if you correct me if I'm wrong, to know that maybe every single country of Africa, 54, 56, depending on where you're getting your data from,
correct,
will have a certain number of Chinese people in there. Well, that is where, even for me personally, I was like, I am getting interested to know why, what's happening, why do we have this country called China visible in every single country of Africa? What do we have? Is that out of love? Are they actually there to form proper partnership relationships? Are they to collaborate, or is this something that we should be actually aware and also keep up with what's going on in the world? Because whatever is affecting Africa will affect Europe and affect New Zealand, where we are here.
100%.
So can you just tell us a little bit from the vast knowledge that you have been accumulating for the last 3 years, digging into being curious about why China is in Africa, but give us a little bit of like maybe a background of how it all started from, like as far as you can, tell us anyway.
Of course. And I think like for everybody listening, I think it's really important for them to understand that when you're looking at China and its presence, we are not looking at its presence in terms of the people there and the culture there. We're looking at it from a very like institutional perspective. Like you're looking at it from China as in the government. You're looking at it like from the fact that China is not the faces you see on the street, because the mingling of culture is the most beautiful thing that could happen. That's something that people should understand.
Absolutely.
And with globalization at the rate it is, like you're going to come across the day when you look at somebody you don't know, you can't tell where they're from just on what they speak or where they come from or what they eat, how they look. You can't. It's impossible anymore. And so that's something that is very unique to the fact that China's coming in and all these cultures are mixing, and we're becoming this melting pot. So when we talk about China, we're not talking about the faces we meet across the street. We're talking about it from a very, very, the government sanctioning stuff, the government getting involved politically. Why is the Chinese government sending out its people to come? That's a different thing. And we've got to ask those questions. So to think about it, like China has had a very long presence in Africa. It's just a lot of people are unaware of it.
Yeah, no, true that, yeah.
Because if we could go back all the way to the time of, the first few sailors traveling down, or China sending like a man called Zheng He with his ship and all of like gifts from the emperors and gifts from what their land and soil could produce, taking it all the way to all these ports of Islam. And that was one thing that connected them. And the topic of Islam is a completely different conversation.
It's so huge.
Specifically in Africa, completely different conversation. But, it's interesting to see. And he came all the way down to Mombasa. And there are stories of, coming and exchanging these gifts and taking back ostriches and taking back giraffes and to go show people in China, look, because imagine back then, like an ostrich, it would have been insane. So, like that's how far back it could go.
Yeah.
And that's already influence in trade and influence in aspects of, resources that Africa had never seen before, like silk. And even now, hundreds of years later, present day, we're still, the thing that they're using to come back in with is looking at the fact that Africa lacks infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Africa lacks medical welfare, and they're looking at all this stuff and they're like, those are pathways to come back. So that's how they're entering. And they've walked in saying, all these conflict-ridden areas. I hate calling them those areas, because they are those areas because of the the mark that colonization left and the mark that drawing lines on a piece of map and saying this is where borders will be.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, it's all from that. But, like, they've walked into the UN and sitting in the Security Council, they're like, we will be non-interveners, and we will, you know, openly facilitate discourse between these two parties to solve conflict transformation. That is what we will facilitate in. And they walk in and they bring in their money and they bring in their infrastructure and they bring in their technology.
Their manpower.
They bring it in, and that's how they cement themselves. And to put it in very simple terms, one may consider this debt trapping.
Yep.
Because you're going to these countries where we're calling them conflict zones. So that means, you know, there's no consistency of an economy there at all. There's no political stability. So these people, in terms of manifesting their resources into monetary value, that's a very, like, not a possible thing all the time.
Yeah.
And so they come in with all these infrastructures and they're expected to pay them back, but how can they pay them back? With their resources.
Well, exactly. It's almost like, if I was to be translating it very in simple words, it's like even a bank here in New Zealand will not giving you money if you don't have, if you can show them collateral, right?
Yeah.
So going into those countries and saying that we're going to give you these finances and these funds, when you know already from the beginning that they're not going to be able to actually pay you back, then it poses a question.
True.
Are you there for actually their own benefit, or are you there for your own interest?
What are your intentions?
Your intentions, because when you are actually giving those finances, you know their capability and their ability, and you can only just wait for 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 years, and then whatever they put against that loan is going to become yours. Not sure if that's what is happening, but they must be doing something positive in Africa, right?
They are positives, for sure. They are positives, and I think that's something a lot of people sit on the fence when it comes to China's involvement in Africa. We're a bit like, we don't know how we feel about this yet.
Yeah.
But just because their game is so long term, this plan and this introduction of, what they've started and ventured into doing is so, it's quite a foreseen future. They want the future to look like something, and they're on the way to getting it. China's one of the most rapid economic growths in the world. It's the new superpower. It is the superpower right now. Like, specifically post the COVID crisis, I would say it 100% is a superpower right now. And so it's on a pathway to getting something, and Africa is part of it. And it's very unique in the sense that Africa shares this history of colonization and this history of just absolute, people have come and dug, and they've just taken all the soil away, and it's just, it looks like a burrow right now.
Yeah.
And we're slowly trying to, like, get our soil back and grow flowers in it. And China monetizes on that emotion, I think, because they come in saying, listen, we're not like the Brits. We share an experience of colonization. We share an experience of, like, imperialism. Like, we understand what you're going through. And, like, during the Cold War, they came and they helped lots of liberation movements. They did.
They did.
They really did.
Yeah.
So they come in with those sentiments, and for African governments that are in a state of, we need to move forward, we need to develop, because this is our chance to catch up with the world and actually be, because Africa's got an abundance of resources. We could be our own marching army if we wanted to. Absolutely. If we wanted to. We could rule the world. Not that ruling is ever the intention in life. But, we could.
We can.
We could. It's the constraint that matters, So...
No, I hear you.
We could, but that's the sentiment that they kind of monetize on. And so for Africans, that's a very recent history of pain. Yeah. So that's something that a lot of people can relate to. And they come in, they're saying, and they're not like the US or British. That's the biggest positive, is the fact that they aren't coming in with these foreign NGOs and, like, creating platforms of dependency. They're not doing that, Are we economically dependent? Yes. Yeah. But they're not creating platforms of dependency. Like, there was a point in time, if Red Cross wasn't there, electricity. They wouldn't have brought electricity to that village.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't have brought the cell phone tower down there.
Yeah.
They would, you know, and things like that. Maybe now, because these NGOs it creates platforms of dependency.
Yeah.
Without them, they can't survive.
They can't survive.
And during COVID, we saw that.
Yeah.
We saw that because all of them were like, we need to go back. We don't want to get COVID. Pulled out, went back home,
and then
what was happening?
Left
Who's gonna? You've created dependency.
Yeah.
What's the proverb? It's actually an African proverb. It goes, feed a how does it go? Feed a man to fish, and give a man a fish.
Yeah, like
give a man a fish.
Teach a man how to fish rather than giving them a fish or something like that.
Along those lines.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Give a man a fish, he'll eat it. Teach a man how to fish, he'll feed his whole village.
There we go.
You know,
that is the correct one.
Yeah.
We finally got there.
Yeah. It's the idea of that. Like, and so China.
So this is what you think China is doing. It's
100%.
actually teaching like an African citizen to know how to fish, to feed the village.
Creating the infrastructures for them to do it.
Yes, I guess like you can say that in looking at it positively, like we've got like roads that are being built, we've got hospitals that are being built, we've got schools that are being built.
Connections, trade.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that China's doing this as is it's called a soft power. They're not like the US or Britain, where they're coming in with militia and military and they're saying, or they're coming in with the book of the word, like none of that, you know. Word of the book. What am I saying? Book of the word? Word of the book. They're not coming in. They're not walking in wafting their, book. So it's different. It is different. And that is a positive. I think that is a big positive. So it really depends how the government attempts to regulate it.
Yeah.
And how they approach it. And more than that, how they hold them accountable for it. Mm-hmm. Which is something that we will get into. Mm-hmm. But still, like, it's very hard. It's hard to foresee because it's all still happening.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do understand where you're coming from. I mean, the approach to coming to Africa is obviously benefiting them and the people of China.
Yeah.
Can we also not say that having someone also like giving you an apple and giving you an orange, but they might be taking your house, could we not actually bring it back to that? Because, me, I'm crazy about Africa. It's my motherland. Yeah. And I know that, at the end of the day, when you see like they're taking out like oil and like a resource,
materials.
I came across somewhere where I was reading that actually China can be self-sufficient with its own minerals and everything. Then that is where even the curiosity goes deeper. It's like, so if they do have that, what do they have to go and come and wanting to give us some roads and it's perfect because what they're doing in Africa, they're even allowing African countries to connect to each other. Do you know what I mean? They are not coming in with like hidden agendas or agreements that are hidden. They are just like right there. They're like, this is what we want and this is what we're going to do and this is what we're going to get.
They make it seem like that. Yeah.
Well, that's what I've, according to my researchers. Yeah. However, like I want to know because I'm still so curious.
Yeah.
These roads and these schools and these hospitals and is this out of their love? What's underneath?
What's underneath?
Yeah, what's underneath?
There's got to be something underneath. You are correct. And are you correct, or should we speculate that you are?
Probably. Let's speculate.
Let's speculate.
Because it's our opinions anyway. We are doing our research, and all we're doing right now is actually raise awareness of
this is true.
of what we are curious about, right? And the people and our listeners can actually like take it from here, and they can go and do research it for themselves. So we are, speculating. Yeah. It's our opinions from what our curiosity has led us to.
True.
But me, I'm still curious to know. Yeah. Yes, right now it's a recent thing. Mm-hmm. It's a recent relationship. Africa and China. By the way, I want to correct it. Yeah, because everything I've been reading was China, Africa, and I'm like, but China is a country and Africa is a continent, right? Yeah. And we're talking about them being in African continent. So I think we should just bring the order correctly. So are we talking about, Africa and China's relationship?
Yes,
you are right. It's a recent thing that has just come up. And also you mentioned something about colonization. I believe that Africa is still healing, yeah?
Still
we are
healing.
still healing from what we went through,
100%.
with colonization. And then there are rumors, and also, is there a cause of why African people should be scared that this could be another form of colonization? Coming back to that, is there anything underneath?
Well, there's
From what
definitely
you've
stuff underneath. That's a loaded question. There's definitely stuff underneath. Like, there's. You're right. Your proverb that you used is absolutely right. You're giving them oranges and apples, and you're taking away gold. You're taking away gold that they were sitting on.
Sitting on.
Like what? Okay. Yeah. I agree. It is. In some sense, it is like that because, and not just that, they're coming in and they're creating ways to manufacture raw material to make it transportable, and they make those manufacturing stations, those ports. That's why they are so interested in the portal parts. North Africa, easy access. Kenya, easy access. That's what they're interested in. They manufacture and they take straight back to China. So you're right. There is an underlying aspect to it. And what is this debt trapping going to do? Because you've seen countries like Kenya that couldn't pay back their economic debt to China.
Yeah.
And they ended up signing one of their biggest ports in Mombasa for 98 years. For 98 years. And I'm like, wow. So, and it's a port.
I just got like goosebumps.
Yeah, goosebumps. 98 years. That shocks me. Zambia sold a small portion of Victoria Falls to and I say small, but I need people to understand but that to me, that's the gateway. That's the gateway to build a Ferris wheel. Apparently, I don't think it's going to be a Ferris wheel at all, and that was a contract given ages ago. There's still no Ferris wheel now. But wanting to pay back, and they gave it to a Chinese international contractor from the Chinese government. And so it's these signs of selling land that was, and it always comes back down to land, and trying to propertize and commercialize and monetize land. That's really what it is. And they came back and they've sold these aspects of land they've leased them for 98 years. And just because they use the term lease, it's supposed to make it better. Yeah. But it isn't. 98 years. That's that means the control, right? Yeah. They are going to be the ones that are going to be regulating. That's 4 or 5 generations. That's done. I don't think people understand that. No. And it's a whole, the influence would be crazy. Culturally, yes, but also socially, economically, politically, every single aspect, it would really be blatantly open. And regulation by the government is desperately needed for that.
So that will be actually a little bit limited. Yes, I do agree with you. We're going to go back to that one. The regulation from the government is definitely most important. But what I'm thinking is with, the port of Mombasa being under lease, for the Chinese for 98 years. For me personally, correct me if I'm wrong, that means the government doesn't even have control over it, which means whatever they're going to be passing through that port, it ain't going to be, they could actually come to you and say, this is the type of copper we're taking out. It probably have 20% of copper in it, but actually pure copper. But because it's going through an uncontrolled environment, then actually they could be taking more out.
That is quite the speculation. I wouldn't say that. So it's important to understand that the government is a completely separate entity. Yeah. But there are political intentions of doing it, definitely. Is money being pocketed? 100%. Are raw materials being pocketed by China? Very much a possibility, 100%. But at the same time, there's the aspect of the government, legislation is supposed to regulate this, right? So when you look at the political institution, it's not just the government. It's not just the people you see on day, the ministries and the ministers. It's not just them. It's also the aspects of people regulating the law, the police, the judiciary system that's executing this law. You've got to look at the aspect of that. And if there is strong legislation and there's good regulation and the people executing it were to follow up to par, that stuff wouldn't happen and shouldn't happen. And that's something that those are where you thicken thicken the walls.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You thicken the walls for stuff like that not to happen. And that's something that we can look into. But is China probably doing that? I wouldn't be surprised if you gave me evidence right now and said they are. Yeah. Because that's the game they are playing.
Yeah.
There's so much happening within China for it to deal with internally, but the media never focuses on that. Look at Xinjiang and look what's happening with the Uyghur population. Like, that's genocide. They say that the death rates are higher than what was happening with the Jews in the Holocaust. And we're just casually sitting and letting it happen, you know, and we're letting China as a government, we're acknowledging that. By acknowledging the government, you're acknowledging everything they're doing in their country. And that's what Africa's done.
Kind of like sitting here thinking that was a good talk, wasn't it?
It was a great talk. We got into some really intense issues that needed to be talked about. So good conversation.
Awesome. Yeah. I was very impressed and I was very educated. So keep it locked and watch the next episode, part 2, coming in next week. African Mirror and all the information about her work on her podcast will be there as well.